Hey everybody, thank you all for joining. I have to admit, last night I was completely terrified. Absolutely terrified. And I was terrified because of data that we'll walk through today. And the ETFs had the biggest dump by far, by a factor of 2 ever. And I thought the price of Bitcoin was going to fall by about $1,200-$1,300. It didn't. In fact, it shot up by 2,000. The question is why? So let's jump in. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Sir Winston and K8, Des, and the whole team that are here. I think Benny's here too. Crypto market cap 2.21 trillion. It was a terrifying night. Second sleepless night out there. We'll break down everything that happened, as well as some really interesting observations too. And Crypto Fear and Greed's at 43. So let's jump in. Shout out to the team at Patreon as well. Treasured Son says, woot woot, I'm glad to say I got a spot in your Patreon. Well, thank you so much for being part of the team. We appreciate you. Playlist is here for the Bitcoin only videos. And let's jump into the news. Bitcoin news time. I felt really bad yesterday because I made yesterday's video, about 25 different on-chain indicators. I said Bitcoin has probably bottomed here, and then I saw the data from the ETFs come out, and I was like, oh darn, this is what I saw last night when I crunched the ETF numbers. A total dumpage of 9,668 Bitcoin added to the system. And I've measured and analyzed dumps before that were a quarter that size, and the impact on the price was vicious. We'll break that down as well, exactly how many Bitcoin need to be dumped and how much money flow needs to come in, and the impact on price. We'll get to that later too. But I was worried. But guess what happened? Sometimes what happens is not what you expect to happen based on data. Not all the time, but sometimes. So first of all, a lot of good news came in. And I always say it's darkest before the dawn, and last night was definitely one of those dark nights. But this just came in from Ian Allison. BlackRock sees sovereign wealth funds, pensions coming to Bitcoin ETFs. And they've been working with educating these funds, endowments and sovereign wealth funds, about the new spot ETFs. Working hard to educate that segment, which has unbelievable trillions of dollars to get some of this IBIT spot ETF. We'll talk about IBIT too as well. They had a bumpy night as well. And shout out to, hey Trask, thank you for coming, from Holger. BlackRock to the rescue. Literally, investors pulled over $500 million out of ETFs yesterday. But don't be fooled by the first major outflows. The current lull is likely followed by a new wave from a different type of investor, said Robert Michnick, head of digital assets for BlackRock. The coming months could see financial institutions such as sovereign wealth funds, etc., pension funds, endowments to start trading spot ETFs and adding them to their assets under management. Again, the amount of wealth held by these categories is many, many trillions of dollars. A tiny allocation will have a huge impact on Bitcoin. It cannot be understated. And this also interesting, people thought, oh, well, the volumes of these spot ETFs in Hong Kong is nothing. Yes, but remember, it's in kind. We don't know if people are depositing Bitcoin directly to them. And shout out to, I think it's Huddle15, said that the Hong Kong ETF holdings were over 5,000 Bitcoin just after 2 days. And that's a big thing here. So we have the US ETFs dumping 10,000 ETFs yesterday, 10,000 Bitcoin yesterday. And Hong Kong, although it's smaller, it is significant as well, adding nearly 5,000 in 2 days, call it 2,500 days. So we're seeing a weird balance here, and I'm kind of happy about this because having a counterbalance on the other side of the planet means there could be less manipulation with the traditional US ETFs, because they know if they dump a bag, Hong Kong could snap it up. But it's not the only player who's snapping up stuff. Mr. 100 is back with a vengeance. I posted this like 2 hours ago. They buy 2,485 Bitcoin in 4 hours. And they just grabbed another 310 Bitcoin. And they just bought more as well. This is a buying spree. And people say, oh, it's an up big cold wallet. No, cold wallets do not show this type of behavior. This is a stacking vehicle of some sort. 2 hours later, they buy another ton up to 3,300. And guess what? And it just happened right before I went live. Now they bought another 400. They're up to 3,800 Bitcoin in 7 hours. Okay, 3,800. So add the 3,800 plus 5,000 out of the new Hong Kong ETFs. You nearly have what the ETFs dumped yesterday. The question is, do these ETF investors watch what's happening in the market? Do they say, well, hang on a second. Everybody seems to be buying the dip hard right now. Should we get back in? If they have half a brain, they will be buying the dip right now. This sub 60,000 Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as I speak, is at 59,000. By the way, the range for today is insane. It was at 56,900 only a few hours ago. Okay, big moves. And not only we got Hong Kong, we got Mr. 100, we got sovereigns, pensions, etc. incoming. Also, this from Vivek. Somebody 16 hours ago bought 1,200 Bitcoin in a straight transaction. Again, 1,200. It's like, compared to some of the other buys, it's not big, but it is also a huge dip buyer. So now we got 3 big dip buyers, but more. Breaking news as well out of Europe. The second largest European bank, BNP Paribas, just bought the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF shares as well. And this is in their financial filing. So this is a very, very big bank. And everybody is looking for exposure. Granted, their position was not large, but what they're all doing now is they're putting their toe in the water to see what the temperature's like. Then they'll go big bang afterwards. And there simply will not be enough Bitcoin to go around. We'll see. Now, there are some bad things happening. Before we get to the charts, I just want to touch on this. McDonald's and other big brands warn that low-income consumers are starting to crack. The economy is in a very bad way. And the Fed, like I was watching JP's body language yesterday, and when he did his video, he was asked a question, and he had a 20-second pause, which means I think he knows things are not as good as he pretends they are to be on TV. Jawboning. And this is my key indicator, because when people are strapped for cash, they stop their little luxuries. This is Starbucks. This is one of my top recession indicators. Now, I like the Big Mac index for cost of living indicators, but not necessarily when things are getting tight out there. But this collapse of Starbucks is truly insane. Company-wide same-store sales fell 4%, traffic 6%. In China, plunge 11% with an 8% decline in average order. And international same-store sales fell 6%, while a 1.4% gain was expected. Management were completely blindsided by the absolute slowdown quarter over quarter in coffee sales. Okay, they sell a drug that I actually partake in too, and they didn't see it coming. This shows you the economy is cracking, and so does this. So more on that later too. Now, 15 years ago, a little bit of history before we get into the charts. This is from Rizzo. Satoshi Nakamoto explained why Bitcoin is a breakthrough in monetary history exactly 15 years ago today. I'll read this because it's too important. Basically, historically, people have taken up scarce commodities as money, if necessary, taking up whatever is at hand, shells, stones, etc. And until now, no scarce commodity that can be traded over communications channels without a trusted third party has been available. If there is a desire to take up a form of money that can be traded over the internet without a third party, now that is possible with Bitcoin. So I think that's so important. And it's history, 15 years ago today. Now let's get into some charts. A couple of interesting things here. First of all, But this is the current dip perspective from RektCap. And don't let a down month distract you from the future up months. And literally, I have seen so many people throw in the towel. Yeah, we've gone from 73,800 all the way down to 56.5. Yeah, that's a 24% drawdown. And that's normal in the scheme of things with this asset. Now, this is super interesting from Econometrics. They analyzed the actual money flow impact that drives the actual price. I have something similar but different. I call it a multiplier, but I thought this is interesting. Basically, it is not perfect, and there are some things that chop it up a bit, but if you take the average since the beginning of the ETF flows and map a linear model to it, for every $1 billion into the ETFs, the Bitcoin price rises $2,300. Not bad. But we had $500 million drain yesterday. Therefore, I thought the price would fall by at least half of 2,300, which is $1,150. That didn't happen. And remember, this data you're looking at here is pre-halving. The asset now is harder. We have Mr. 100 buying nearly 4,000 Bitcoin today. Okay, that's nearly 10 times the daily issuance. One entity, one day. So I do believe, because it's harder, maybe if this model continues, post-halving, every $500 million could add $2,300 to the Bitcoin price. And remember, it might sound like a lot of money, $500 million, but it's not when you look at the amount of assets on the planet. It's small potatoes. So we'll watch this very carefully. Now, another cool chart too. April was nasty. Not just for Bitcoin. Again, from the team at Econometrics. Shout out to Nick. And I subscribe to his wonderful Substack. But April was also bad for Microsoft. So the little black line there, you can see April, a 15% haircut for Bitcoin. Microsoft was down about 10%. Berkshire Hathaway was down about 8%. NASDAQ was down about 6%, 7%. Nvidia was down about 5%. Apple was down. Tesla was up. Tesla broke the trend. But Tesla also had a miserable Q1. So it's good to see. It's good assets are like those beach balls underwater. They will eventually rise up. You can keep them down, but only for a little limited amount of time. Now, quick reminder too. Bitcoin ETF, yes, it got a kick in the teeth. But remember, this is the launch of the GLD Trust. And the first 6 months or so, it was bumpy. It was up and down. We had a very good opening for 3 months or so, and then it did fall down and went quiet. But then it went up for 8 years straight. The question is, will Bitcoin do the same? The difference between gold and Bitcoin is less manipulated and also a lot more scarce, which is super interesting. And RektCap is back. They have been talking about this 2016 cycle, how it's repeating perfectly in 2024. And the downside and the range and the movements are all very, very similar. Now, per this, Bitcoin is currently 13 days after the halving, which means that Bitcoin has only 8 days left in the post-halving danger zone, purple, marked here on the chart. And this gap is narrowing rapidly. So if the 2016 history repeats, or most probably if it's shorter because the asset is scarcer, more well-known, and a formidable asset class with an actual definition right now, it could be even less. We could be coming out of this too. And again, my view of the world, not as pretty a chart, but it's a table. We are now 6 days after the... That should be 13 days. Whoops, I forgot. The numbers are correct. The 6 days is wrong. That should be 13 days. We are 13 days after the halving. The other assets on average over all these periods were up 4%. Epoch 4 is down 6%. Remember, 30 days after halving, up 5%. But the key is, it's that window. So break it out. 90-day period. First 30 days, choppy after halving. The next 60 days are when all the action happens. And we're going into that zone right now. Well, let's see. And we have, say, 15 days left, 2 weeks left. of this first 30 days after the halving, and Bitcoin is recovering. In fact, since I started, Bitcoin has gone up $260 because of the good juju from the audience here. Thank you, HS1. Now, another fun little chart, and we'll get into the ETF flows. Income Sharks, I shared this, it's entering the it's over stage. Even the bulls on the timeline are giving up after buying the dip on the way down with this 23% retracement. And a lot of people are afraid, saying it's over, the halving sucks, it's a fake rally, last chance to sell before 40K, and we know what happens next. It is a hard asset. I've just illustrated all of those buying to counteract the huge dumpage from the US ETFs. Stunning. Let's get into those ETF numbers right now. Let's look at the day 77 raw numbers. This is what terrified me yesterday. That red box in the bottom, 563. We have never seen anything this nasty in the history of these ETFs. Every single ETF was red. Fidelity, 191 million out. BlackRock, 36.9 million. After 5 days of doing nothing, drained 37 million. BITB, 29 million. ARK, 98.1 million. Grayscale, 167 million. Recluse Man, thank you for coming up there in Canada. Hope the butterflies are doing well. EasyBC, 13.4. Every single ETF drained. First of all, I have never seen a day where all of the ETFs had action. Second of all, never seen a day where they were all negative. It was a historic day. The question is, what are they doing now? After seeing, okay, we just dumped a truckload and the price went up $2,000. What's next? Will they get back in? I think a little FOMO was going to kick in tonight. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Again, I'm just a guy on the internet who looks at a lot of data. This is the ETF Macro. You can see here, for the first time ever as well, Fidelity dump nearly matched that of Grayscale, which is kind of crazy. But when you zoom out, it was a nasty day. We've never had such a down day. But at the same time, compared to what's happened over the past 77 days, it's not catastrophic. However, this does look catastrophic. This is the flow per day and the big red dip on the line for cumulative and the massive blue bar that we've never seen before down. But I take great comfort in the fact that this happened and the price went up. What will happen when the ETFs return and start buying again? Answer me that in the comments below. You can see here the flow minus 563. The trend is going down hard. Big day. And we've never also historically had 6 outflows in a row. And here we are breaking history again. It was a nasty record dip yesterday. 31.5 million inflows into the 9 new ETFs still, despite the $500 million drainage yesterday. Not bad. And again, if you look at history, if you take $1 billion in, price goes up by $2,300. You take $1 billion out, the price should fall. It didn't. That's what's stunning, everybody. 525,000 Bitcoin are still in the 9 new ETFs. And the Grayscale drainage is below the purple trend line, 167 million. So all in all, it was a nasty day. But again, stunning to see the Bitcoin price still go up. And we had 9,668 Bitcoin added to the system, which is pretty much what that whale bought with 1,200. Also, the snacking out of Hong Kong over 2 days, and Mr. 100 today. Those 3 players alone counterbalance that. What happens when Bitcoin is more widely adopted beyond 3 players? Think about that. And when these guys stop selling, it's going to be crazy. Now, the OTC desks as well were replenished. So I always ask myself, where does the Bitcoin go? Okay, we had 9,000 hit the system. They are now back in the OTC desks. So the OTC desks now have liquidity again where they can sell stuff. And the final note of the day, Lord Saylor, Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy, is doing the Bitcoin for Corporations live conference right now. I listened to a bit of it. Shout out to Josh as well that shared this with me right before I went live. He said, Bitcoin is the best. Once you have found the best idea, everything else you invest your time or energy in is dilutive. to that best idea. He says, study Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, build on Bitcoin, advocate Bitcoin, defend Bitcoin, and enjoy Bitcoin. Or if you hold ETF shares, you sell Bitcoin. So anyway, I'm happy to see Bitcoin gone up $300 during this live stream. Thank you all for coming. Hit the like. And by the way, a little trick I learned after doing YouTube for 3 years. When you like a video and you like the content, YouTube will recommend similar content, not just mine, but if you like this, it's a good way to find content that appeals to you. So I just learned that yesterday. Amazing. Thank you all. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Thank you, TND Tesla, K8 and Sean and Donnelly for keeping us all safe. And who else is out there? We got Elijah and Bitcoin Maxi Mike. Too many to read. And yes, thank you all for coming. See you all later. I'm not sure if I get a second one in today, but maybe I have some other work I need to do. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.